Beginning the year with lot of hope and happy note, we at Manipal Universal Press are extremely happy to present the new series Conversation with an Author, where we understand what goes into writing a book, the journey of the book, the journey of an author, process and preparation. We also provide you with informative inputs, especially for all the budding writers, about what to do, what not to do, and how to go about when you write a book. So stay tuned for more videos. We at Manipal Universal Press are delighted to have one of an amazing personality, the writer who rescued the lake, Usha Rajgopalan. Writer by choice, conservationist by chance. Today we are having a conversation about her near and dear book, The Zoo in My Backyard, where she looks into her childhood with Kesavan, Sita, Maxi, Minnie, Tominathan, and much more stories to tell you all. So here we quickly slide into the conversation with Usha Rajgopalan. Okay, ma'am. The first question, or rather put as a curiosity, is that what inspired you to write the book?
Actually, it is pretty easy because I had this huge experience, unique experience, and I've always wanted to be a writer, looking to tap, one's own sources, right? But the idea of writing this book actually came about much later because my father passed away in 2006, and that is when it hit me with a, you know, bad blow that I had never thanked him for giving me such a wonderful childhood. So, what I did was to start writing a series of articles for a column called Kookaburra Laughs, which had come in the Deccan Herald.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was a kind of a tribute to my father and reliving the past. And I had lots of fun writing it. But then what had also happened was when this realization of this wonderful childhood exposure to environment, conservation, etc., it it sort of came forth, and I took up the cause of a lake in my background, in my locality. And I mooted a campaign to get the civic administration to rejuvenate it, and they did it. So these two things are actually interconnected because once I got deeper and deeper into the lake, I had to keep aside not only this Kookaburra Laughs, but several other writings went on the back burner because I simply didn't have the time to write it. So it's much later on that I think in 2019, perhaps, or maybe even 20, that I got together to compile this and I submitted a proposal to Manipal Universal Press, and I'm really glad that they took it up.
Okay. So, since we are talking about the inspiration drawn to write the book, as an author of the book, you are reminiscing through the childhood through the book, or you're telling the younger generation what they are missing out on and the coexistence, or does it work both the ways?
No, actually, does work. For me, it was just narrating this experience to the grandchildren in my family, because even my children never believed that I could, at one point in time, I could actually make a noise like a peacock and things like that. They couldn't believe it. So this is for the posterity in my own family, really, that I wrote this. But then there have been two reactions to this from readers. One is absolute envy.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at what kind of a childhood you had, and look at us. And the second is, I mean, the reader may not have so many animals, of course, but the rest of the paraphernalia, living in a joint family, living with lots of siblings in an ancestral house with lots of trees, birds, whatever. That kindled, memories in several readers. This is, of course, people who are much older, because nowadays, even people in the age of 20, 25 may not even ever have lived in a house, independent house in the backyard, unless they go to their grandparents. So that way, this has served both purposes. But as far as I was concerned, I was trying to tell this story to, as I told you, to the grandchildren. And when my niece was expecting, I promised that I would write the book. That was in 2009, I think. Yeah, 2009 perhaps. And I said, I will dedicate this book to her. But by the time I got around to doing it, there are many other names in that dedication list. So I'm glad that I did finally get to write it.
One more, very interesting aspect of the book was naming of the pets. Kesavan, Sita, Maxi, Minnie. So, is there a story behind naming the pets?
There's one behind every single name.
Okay.
Okay. Let me take the easiest one. That is my Pomeranian called Maxi. Because my father had told me I used to be terrible. I'm still very terrible in maths.
Oh.
And I could never get my numbers right. So he said, if you pass your maths exam, test or something, I'll get you a special pet. Then I said, I want a Pomeranian. I want not one, but three. If I'm going to put so much of hard work and pass my maths test, I might as well get three, you know.
Yeah.
Why stop at just one? So he said, sure. And he came back one day with this one Pomeranian. So in the hope that he's going to bring me another two, I did do better in my maths, but he never got them. But I ended up naming only Maxi. And then I realized that he's not going to get me another dog. So we got this mouse deer, which was really a mini thing. So it seemed obvious that I should name her, or rather, it seems like I prevailed upon my siblings and got to name the mouse deer Minnie.
Okay. And the process of writing a book is said to be very, very fascinating. And especially since this is your autobiography, how delightful was it reliving and recollecting the memories?
I enjoyed it. I absolutely, you know what, Spurti, the funny thing is, when I was writing this book, uh, even when I was writing those articles, it didn't really occur to me that these are autobiographical sketches. I was just writing because I had always been writing things based on things which happened in my life, a little bit of a little anecdotes and kind of a thing. And it never occurred to me that this is actually autobiographical. Uh, and much later on, in fact, even after the book came out, that's when I realized this is actually a memoir. Memoir is, you know, one part of your life. It's not the whole story about how you were born and how you're what you're doing right now, but it is one aspect of your life. So it was a revelation to me that I had written a memoir.
Okay. One more interesting thing I found in the book was the mention of Devil family and the little girl at the party yelling, "Amma, Devil family has come." So, is there any more incidents that you want to narrate about the Devil family?
Uh, See, the Devil family, it was not really at a party that it happened. You know, was brought up in a very, very conservative, traditional South Indian family. And this Navaratri, you know, we would go to people's houses for Haldi Kumkum and all that. So we happened to go to this house. We just got off the car. One little girl playing outside, she went running. Amma, Devil's family has come. And we were looking at each other. We had never been called the Devil's family. Perhaps behind our backs, we were called lots of names. Maybe the Black Monkey family or the Giant Squirrel family, whatever. But this was the first time somebody was actually calling us the Devil's family. And okay, we can't disown him just because his name is Devil. And anyway, my brother's to be blamed for naming him Devil.
Yeah.
And it also happened because he was also living his wish, you know, because he used to be very fond of this Phantom comics. And just like I begged and pleaded with my father for a Pomeranian, he begged and pleaded for a wolf. So my father very diplomatically got him a Rajapalayam hound.
Mm.
And that fellow made up for, he may not have been a wolf, but he definitely showed all indications of being an extremely wild animal. And the moment my brother would take off the leash, this fellow would run away.
Oh yeah.
And my brother would be holding the other end and he would be pulled, literally pulled, you could see his chest, all cut. And after God knows how long, finally the devil would bring the owner back home.
And since we're talking about the pets and attachment with pets is something beyond explanation. But when you know it will eventually be taken away from you, how did you manage the roller coaster of emotions?
See, we cannot look too far into the future. And especially in these COVID times, I think it is a blessing that you and I are healthy right now.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's important to make the most of each day, whether for yourself or with your loved ones around, whether it's a human, whether it's an animal. I think if you find, if you're bonded through this love, definitely it is going to be a big blow when they leave, but you just accept it because you have to. I think at the end of the day, you should not have any regrets.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so if your relationship has been absolutely one filled with a lot of joy, with happiness, with so much of affection, that that the hollow space is always going to be inside. But then you will fill it up with another equally pleasant memory and an equally pleasant relationship.
And you were very fortunate to have the zoo in your backyard. But when we look at present generation, especially in the metro cities, which are often referred as concrete jungle, it is very difficult to expect a zoo in our backyard, and some apartments don't even allow pets in their apartments. So how do we fill in the gap?
See, one thing that anybody can do is actually, the zoo need not really uh, include, um, like a brown bear or deer or guinea pigs and things like that. It is still possible to have some small pet which you can manage inside the house. But it is important to have a pet because it makes you sensitive towards other living beings and it teaches you a sense of responsibility. A child of about 8 or 9 having to take a dog out every day whenever the dog has to do its job, it teaches a kind of discipline to the child.
Yes.
Okay, and training a pet also is a beautiful task, which is a beautiful learning experience actually. But I agree with you that it is not possible given this kind of a our lifestyles have become very very high pressure ones, and you may not even be able to have time in your life for another pet. But pets are also wonderful stress busters, and if at all it is possible, I would suggest that you keep some animal or the other. But having said that, I don't have one now.
Mhm.
Um, and that is because I find that actually I don't have the time to
Okay.
look after a pet. And I feel that I have brought up my children and so many pets, and I've done my share of looking after. So, and I have a lake to look after.
Yeah, the whole conversation has been extremely informative, ma'am. And one last question, this is especially for all the budding writers who don't know how to go about when they write a book, what to do, what not to do, any piece of advice to them.
See, anybody starting to write off, I mean, I would suggest that they start off with writing something small. It can be an article, it can be a short story, okay, an essay. Try out with these small things because writing a book is a commitment of time,
Yeah.
and it's a leap of faith actually, in the sense that you have to have. Um, the faith in your ability to sustain. See, writing a book can take really, it can take from 40 days to about 60 days or even more, maybe 3-4 months. Okay. And that is only for the first draft.
Yeah.
The actual writing lies in revising. Now, whether it is a story or an article, without a revision, you cannot possibly send it. You have to take a time and write from the title to the very last word in what you've written. Is that the right word? Is a test you have to put yourself through. So writing is difficult. Just face it. Just because you have a good voice doesn't mean you're going to become a singer.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So it really comes down to having lots and lots of practice. Unfortunately, people think that just because you can string a few words together and make a sentence, you can become a writer. No, it is not that. Maybe beginner's luck and you are able to get the first one published. But to be called a real writer, you have to keep working. You have to keep revising and writing again and breaking your head over and over and over with it. So that's, but at the same time, if you have an idea and you feel that you should pursue it, then by all means you should, because that idea is yours and only you can express it the way you can. So I would definitely encourage everybody to try and write, but please don't think that you are going to be the modern day answer to Shakespeare.
Yeah. That was very helpful, ma'am. Yeah. One more last question is for our personal documentation and collection. So, any thoughts about MUP that you want to share with us?
Any thought about MUP as a publisher?
Yeah.
See, I find the quality of printing to be absolutely superlative.
Hmm.
It's really, really good. And I also find that the editorial team is very approachable, and they have listened to me. And when I tell them I would like to do it this way, that way, kind of a thing, they are very open. It's not that they're saying, now shut up, we have printed your book and get out. No, they have not done that at all.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you, ma'am. It was very informative.
Thank you so much, Spurti, and I'm really glad that you have called me over. And let's hope that that zoo in my backyard will do even much better after this. I would certainly welcome all listeners to please get a copy and read it and share your feedback.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much.